CUOMO here. Welcome to NewsNation. 'Twas the night before Christmas. Food for thought, my last serving of the year. And food for thought should be a term heavy with significance for my brothers and sisters who choose to believe in this, the holy season. But I promise this is a message for all. So we're often told to remember the reason for the season. What is it, really? The Lamb of God is coming, right? Birth of the Christ, that is Christmas. The Messiah, the Anointed One. But anointed for what? Why lamb? All the terms, all the metaphors, all the messaging, all lead to one basic truth. He is a symbol of his eventual and ultimate sacrifice. Sacrifice, a word that means to make an act holy. Why would the most powerful lose their only son? What could require that much? What could he want us to get that is so important? The answer is a single and immutable truth: the power of forgiveness. God allowed Jesus to be not just murdered, but nailed to a cross. Why? Because that is how profoundly we are to believe in the power of and requirement of forgiveness. Forgiveness of our sins was so important. God loved us so much that he gave his only son to secure and save us. Wow. The etymology of the word forgiveness directs us to release a claim completely. The truth of the word of God lays out further to this point that the ultimate value is love, and the ultimate act of love is forgiveness. And it would seem that the messaging is so heavy and obvious because we are so bad at living this truth. Even now, at this time of the year, there is little, if any, forgiveness in any public space. And I start with me. I do not walk the talk enough. I forgive too little, too rarely, and I am the lesser because of that. Too many of us are all gotcha, all what and who is worse, all what is wrong, all attack all the time. Social media is not the problem. It just makes it easier for us to show how far we've fallen away from what matters most. How many have a crucifix or boast God as their priority next to their screen name, and yet their threads littered with anything but God's core command, love thy neighbor. And to do so as testament to your love of him. Not even that you like the neighbor, but that you love God. What influencer in politics is making anything better? But their bank accounts, of course. Dividing is cheap and easy, as are most things in life that don't last. People telling you not to talk politics over the holy days, that's as odd as telling you the drones are looking for loose nukes. That is feeding division, keeping us apart, and that's not what matters. The salve is simple. Talk politics, talk problems, solutions, see where you agree. And where you don't, where you can't square your support or contempt for Trump or Biden or whichever poison party you pretend is better, when you can't square that with who else is at the table, just practice what is preached. Practice forgiveness. Forgive the differences and discrepancies, the slights. Forgive the ignorance, the arrogance, the wrongness. Now, I'm not saying accept it. I'm not saying accept what's wrong, call lies the truth, or that what bothers you doesn't matter. On the contrary, it all matters so much that you are able to move beyond the disagreement in the interest of finding a space to coexist, because that is humanity. Interdependence is not about all things being or living the same. It is needing one another despite any differences. Forgive it. Forgive them. The relief is yours, much more so than this forgiveness is a gift to another. Now, how often should you be able to do this when they're so wrong about so much? About what happened, about you, about reality? 7 times 7 times 70. An absurdly high number delivered in the Bible to make an absurdly obvious truth. you forgive as much as can be forgiven. There is no disputing that this is the will of God. There is no message he delivered more, but we struggle because we're weak. They're wrong, and wrong is dangerous, and being right matters, because that is the side of truth, and democracy demands truth. Otherwise, they win, and all is lost. That has never been true. That attitude has never helped anything but those seeking advantage through animus. Here is the truth from the Almighty. Love one another as I have loved you, and do it for the love of me, and my name is truth. That is Jesus' message distilled. And the wisdom has been echoed by every better mind and philosopher throughout time. And by the way, truth doesn't mean that you're right, but that you are doing what is right, which is often hard and unappreciated, just like Jesus' sacrifice that saved us all. So why don't you at least try it? Forgive the grudge. Forgive the grievance. Reach out. Rekindle relations. The political parties, by the way, are too similar to deserve this separation of us and them. They are corrupt clubs that are about getting and keeping power, not doing anything with it for you. So stop helping them. The election is over. Trump has been weighed and measured, and he is our president. I want him to make moves that make life better for as many as possible. If he does so, I will say so. If he does not, I will say so. How? When he said this and he did that to you personally, I get it. I get who he is. I know what he's done. But no man is just their worst moments. No one is. And I respect our country enough to respect its decision. Do you? Message goes same for the right. It is not truth nor justice that drives the desire to go after who went after Trump. It's petty vengeance, and you know it, and it will get us nowhere better. What's more, if the president-elect can forgive and focus on making deals when he takes office, that is not only his best, it is his only chance of having the legacy that Donald John Trump wants. Otherwise, his most likely fate is to be forgotten as part of a low period. Why? Give me a divider who's remembered well in American history. The guy who fomented frictions but was never able to transcend them. Unless President Trump can forgive and be something more than the rabble in the ranks. We will see. Now, I get that grievance grows a following and gets your pod paid. But what's getting better as a result? No problem solved, just exacerbated by blame and BS. We can't even get straight answers on what's in the air because we're all so anxious to accuse and make up explanations to fuel a following. It's loose nukes. Well, that's scary. Makes sense that comedians have outsized influence on social media because our politics have become a joke. Christmas is all about forgiveness. It's the reason for the season. It takes strength to forgive. It is easy to forsake. It is hard to forgive. Choose your hard. Will you live the reason for the season? We can all talk the talk. I'm doing it right now. Let's see who can walk the walk. I wish you the best for a blessed Christmas. You are each and all a gift to me and our entire team. Whatever you celebrate, I wish you the fulfillment of all of it. And I will see you in the new year. And I thank you now in advance. Now, today, we didn't want to cover this, but you got to cover it. The House Ethics Committee released its report on Trump's first pick for Attorney General, former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. Why? Animus. And after reviewing nearly 14,000 documents, speaking with dozens of witnesses, the Ethics Committee found that Gaetz did exactly what you've heard he did a gazillion times. He paid money to women and sex was involved, and one of them was under 18. He also paid nearly $100,000 to a dozen women for whatever he wants to describe it as, but sex and drugs were involved between 2017 and 2020. The report accuses Gates of using cocaine, ecstasy, even setting up a fake email account from his D.C. office to buy weed. But he's no longer in the running to be AG, nor is he a member of Congress. And the FBI never moved to have him charged with anything. So why release it? Let's discuss the value. Progressive podcast host Brian Tyler Cohen and NewsNation's numero uno correspondent at large, OAO, the one and only Geraldo Rivera. It is good to see you both. Blessings of the season for both of you, my brothers. Thank you for being a gift in my life. I appreciate you. I start with you, El Senor. Geraldo, what do you make of this release of the report? Is this just transparency or is this toxic?
Well, it may be both, Chris, because here you have a situation where this was the person designated by the President of the United States to be the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, the Attorney General, the head of the Justice Department. It is, I think, instructive to the American people that this guy was going to be Attorney General, even though the people in charge of making him Attorney General, including the President of the United States, Donald Trump, knew everything in this report. I think that that is a shocking disclosure that speaks volumes. It is very important that people understand that Donald Trump wanted Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General, even though President Trump knew that he had paid money to 17-year-olds and taken all the drugs and everything else. He was a whoremonger, this guy. And he was going to be Attorney General. I think, I don't care about Matt Gaetz. I think that what he did to the Congress and what he did to the reputation of the Congress is appalling. He is a dark chapter that should go away. But the fact that he now is crying, oh, my God, why are you exposing me thus? When he allowed the President of the United States to put his name nearly in nomination, certainly let everyone know that this was his pick to be not the head of the Department of Transportation or animal welfare or, old folks' homes. This was going to be the Attorney General, Chris. I think that is very telling.
I get it. My beef, Brian, is I knew all this already. We all knew it. There's nothing in this report that's new. How does this help Democrats to release this?
Well, the reality is that this was a taxpayer-funded report, and now it gives credence to what a lot of people already knew. But look, we need this kind of evidence in this political environment because unless you have the evidence in front of you, then it's easy for both sides to just shout past each other and pretend that everybody else is lying if it doesn't fit your political narrative. And let's remember,
but they still can do that, Brian. They can say he was never charged with a crime. So what you're doing is a moral judgment. We think you're all dogs. Focus on larger things. Don't focus on who's the worst.
It's a hell of a lot more difficult to do that when this was a report that was compiled by a bipartisan committee. And by the way, we needed a vote from Republican members of Congress as well. So that takes that away. Now people can't say, oh, this is just another Democrat witch hunt from the evil communist Marxists on the left. This would not have been released had it not been for Republicans also coming forward and saying that this report deserves to be released.
Two of them. Look, here's what I'm saying. I don't have I have no dispute with you fellas about what's in the report. Okay? I haven't read anything in the 37 pages that does not comport with what I had heard many times over. What I'm saying, Geraldo, isn't it clear that the American people don't want Congress in the morality business? I'm not saying it's a felony or it's fine, but it's close to that as a standard. People don't care what Congress thinks about other people.
I have to say what I have to say, regardless of what the American people feel about what I have to say. What I have to say is that this was not only was he low down and dirty, but he destroyed the life, the career, the trajectory, the gentlemanliness of the Congress of the United States. He destroyed Kevin McCarthy's career. He removed him from the speakership of the House of Representatives. He was not merely an annoyance. He was an anarchist in the Congress. He was more than, just a gadfly. This was a toxic force. You talk about toxicity. This was a person who dragged down the very institution that I know you revere so profoundly. So I think that Matt Gaetz deserves to be in the trash heap of history, but never forget that he almost sleazed in to head up the Department of Justice. I think that whole idea, if you just think about it for a minute, this was the guy that was going to be in charge of all those thousands of FBI agents, all the other, departments within that, with top security and all the rest of it. Imagine just the blackmail potential for Matt Gaetz. Now he's Attorney General.
Yeah.
Now, okay,
it was an
Mr.
absurd choice.
If you continue to pursue my guy, I'm going to release the fact that you and the 17-year-old
I'm with you.
were transported across
It was an
state
absurd
lines.
choice.
Yeah,
it was an absurd choice.
Let him go down. Let him go down. Don't waste your beautiful. All right, don't waste your beautiful compassion for this guy.
Listen, I'm not in the judgment business, pal. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying let's redeem Gaetz. Let's get him back out there as AG. What I'm saying is, look, ipsa dixit, as they used to say when we were in law school, right? The thing speaks for itself. Trump thought this was the guy who should be in charge of justice in the country. We get it. What I'm saying, Brian, isn't there an opportunity here to focus on what you know matters to the American people? This guy is what he looks like, which is what a lot of people think politicians are. They're wrong, but that's what they think. A migrant sets fire to someone in the New York subway, someone who should not be in the country. Isn't this worth focusing on? Not because, look, this is bad for Democrats unless Democrats take a different posture and work with this new Congress on comprehensive immigration reform. That's what Trump wants as the first big legislative achievement. Legislative, not executive action. Shouldn't they see the writing on the subway trains and focus on this?
Yes, but I think it's a yes and. I think that you don't have to ignore Matt Gaetz's criminality to also be able to look at something so black and white as the reality of what happened on the subway.
Never charged with a crime.
But that you know full well that just because you don't get charged with the crime doesn't mean that you didn't commit it. It means that the DOJ might not have thought for one reason or another that they couldn't reach the bar the bar that they had to reach to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the threshold. There might have also been witnesses that didn't want to come forward and make themselves public figures because of what the content dealt with, and I completely understand that. Regardless, I think that all three of us are probably in agreement about the depravity of what he did, and also knowing that there is no reason to have even sought to elevate this guy, and a full understanding of what trying to elevate this guy to the highest law enforcement position in the United States says about how much you take seriously this Republican adage of law and order, and moreover, how seriously he's going to take it in these next 4 years.
Yeah, but what they say is, I don't care about his partying as much as I care about the lawfare from the DOJ. And Gaetz may get a lot of stuff wrong, but he's got that right, and Trump's right about it, and he's loyal to Trump. And that's why Trump has him in there, to protect him from the rest of the people in the DOJ and to go after the people who prosecute politicians they don't like. And that's why people rate Trump at over 50% and how he's dealing with the transition when he picked this guy to be AG. You have to see it, guys. You have to see what seems to not make sense to you. How could you pick a guy like that? That's how. That's how. Look at you both, speechless.
I wouldn't waste my compassion on this guy.
Don't waste your what I'm saying is, why put out the report and why deal with this when you know you have a suspect in a tax-funded migrant hotel turned shelter committing this kind of crime? It's happening all the time. The issue beat you in the election. Focus on what matters to the majority. That's all I'm saying. And showing who's the most immoral in Congress doesn't matter to the majority.
We can walk and chew gum at the same time, first of all. And so I think that we can appropriately deal with the depravity of Matt Gaetz while also appropriately dealing with the depravity of this scumbag ghoul who committed the crime that he committed in the New York subway, while also recognizing that, by the way, this is a crime. Like, Matt Gaetz as an adult, if all of this is true, this is statutory rape. If he had sex with a 17-year-old girl, that is also something that we should be taking seriously as well. Walk and chew gum at the same time.
I got you, but I've never seen him do two things at once. I've barely seen him do one thing at a time. And Geraldo, look, I see this as a metaphor. This guy lights someone on fire, is fanning the flames on the lady, and people are sitting there with their phones instead of doing something, and the cops are walking by. This is what I know the New York governor is getting beat up for saying the subways are safer. But this is what matters.
My kids take the F train every day, Monday through Friday. They live in Brooklyn. They work in Manhattan. It's something that's near and dear to me. This, scumbag doesn't do justice to this horrible, horrible person who committed this crime and deserves to be burned at the stake. It's one of the great tragedies of our time that because the issue of undocumented immigrants is so volatile, people feel so deeply about it. They feel, and you can't, it's not about logic and how much you have to do with undocumented immigrants, how much you don't have to do with them or anything like that. It is a visceral response that these people, the awful, awful people are coming to do awful, awful things, and they're coming illegally. And it is very frustrating to those of us who want a robust immigration system, who believes that the country was built by immigrants and will prosper on the strength of the broad backs and the sharp minds of the people who come choose the United States as their destination nation. But what happened is just so, it's a kind of crime. I remember in the 70s when it was all the graffiti on the subways, and I was going to Brooklyn Law School, Manhattan, and you'd see stuff, but this is as bad as it's ever, statistically, crime is down 6%. I know that on the subways. But this one of these crimes, and you come and you take the subway every day, of course you're paranoid. Of course you don't meet other people in the eye. Of course you sit there and you just hold your breath until you get to your stop. It's not the way people should live. It should have to live. And I think
they're playing with the stats, Geraldo. You can look at different metrics and different kinds of crime and develop the picture that you want. I'm telling you, as someone who's been in this city, most of my life, it's on edge right now, and for good reason. And I just think the more focus on what matters to the most people, the better off we'll be. Gentlemen, I got to jump. Brian Tyler Cohen, we are going to continue this conversation.
Merry
you
Christmas.
are a gift to the audience. Geraldo's on vacation, and he did this just for us. Geraldo, I love you and appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you, fellas, for being in my life.
Brother.
And thank you for being a gift to the audience.
Yeah, and Dusty,
I'll talk to you tomorrow.
We got to thank Dusty, too.
All right, with the Dusty. Brian, thank you. I'll talk to you soon. 4 minutes, 5 seconds.
Merry Christmas.
Coming up. You think that the Me Too movement has lost some of its momentum? I don't know. The latest case out of Hollywood seems to be a reignition. Blake Lively, big name, half of a big power couple in Hollywood, right? Her husband is Deadpool. Just filed a legal complaint against her co-star and director. Plus, the movie company, producer, and various PR firms claiming they all subjected her to sexual harassment and launched a social media smear campaign against her. What's the strength of the case? What does it mean in terms of the dialogue in our society? Kind of sounds like the Amber Heard case, doesn't it? Does to her attorney also. Amber Heard's attorney joins us next.
Please, I love you. I love you. I love you, please. Please, please.
It ends with us, starring Blake Lively. That's what you're watching there, a story about breaking the generational cycle of domestic abuse. Now, Blake Lively is claiming abuse. She has filed a legal complaint against her co-star and director of the film, as well as the movie company, the producer, and a team of PR agents, alleging repeated sexual misconduct on set, as well as a calculated campaign to destroy her reputation in public. Among the allegations, Lively claims her co-star and producer made comments of a sexual nature, entered her trailer when she was in different states of undress after she repeatedly asked them not to, and says her co-star crossed the line during some of the movie's love scenes. And then, during the promotion of the film, Lively became the target of online hate and was criticized for promoting the film as light and hopeful instead of using it as a message about domestic violence. This is important because it's about what are these allegations about? Is it because she's upset about what they did to her or about this?
Blake Lively destroyed the film itself, which actually did have the potential to be an incredible movie with a beautiful message had she not been in it and completely taken it over.
She wanted to hijack this movie and is actively trying to promote her and her brands. And Justin Baldoni isn't having that. And so she does what all mean girls would do in that situation, and she iced him out of the group.
I knew nothing about her before this. I didn't know her acting was this bad. I didn't know she got married on a plantation. Now I'm seeing montages of all her worst interview moments. Whoever has preyed on her downfall is dancing in the rain right now.
I see it as a bunch of young people wasting their time. Lively says it's part of a coordinated smear campaign by her co-star and others, saying that these types of videos were a result of, quote, a sophisticated press and digital plan with the objective of intimidating her and anyone else from revealing in public what actually occurred. A subpoena reveals text messages from her co-star's PR team that says things like, Justin wants to feel like she can be buried. And the response from the PR firm, we can bury anyone. Lively is seeking legal accountability and compensation for emotional distress and the harm to her reputation that resulted in financial losses. Where are the equities here? Elaine Bredehoft, who represented Amber Heard in her defamation trial against Johnny Depp, joins us. Defense attorney Mark Garagos joins us. And Karen Kessler, president of Kessler PR Group, because I wanted that, that angle in there. All right, so let's start with allegation, response to it, and how this is playing out. Elaine, I'll start with you. Why do you believe that these allegations may have teeth?
Well, first of all, remember this PR team was the same PR team that Depp got back in the Amber Heard and Depp case. And remember that Depp had first lost in the UK. It had been determined as a matter of law he had committed 12 acts of domestic violence against Amber Heard. That was his choice of forum. He comes over then to the U.S. to face this trial. What he does is he hires this PR firm. Now, most PR firms, you assume, are supposed to promote their clients. That's not what this PR firm does. And it's what's clear in Blake Lively's complaint is they do exactly the opposite. They go out and intentionally fabricate stories, create smear campaigns, and with TikTok and all the other social media. And that's what happened to Amber Heard. They went after her to destroy her rather than to try to promote Depp. And it worked to a large extent. We had a very conflicted jury. They found in favor of both sides, and they were very confused. But the social media attack on Amber was absolutely horrific. And I'm so glad that Amber has come out in support of Blake Lively, and I think everyone should be coming out. She complains about sexual harassment. He hires a public relations firm. They go out to smear her and destroy her so that when it comes out publicly that she's been complaining about the sexual harassment, she will be discredited. That's their whole philosophy.
So on the reverse side, Counselor Garagos, is part of the defense here that she's upset about how the public relations went, so she came up with these allegations against us?
Well, I think I don't disagree as to what happened in the Depp Heard case. What I do think needs to be said is it's almost ironic. I read the New York Times article about this, one of the first ones that came out, and I was laughing to myself and talking to some friends that the crisis managers themselves who are in a battle royale, and there's also another backstory to the crisis managers and that falling out and them sniping at each other. And they were then manipulating the New York Times reporting on this story. And in fact, the stories that have been out today are further manipulation by the crisis PR. It's almost a battle by proxy here. And I'll tell you, one of the things that tells you all you need to know, when there were excerpts of texts that were released, and somebody asked the question in some of the reporting, where did those texts come from? And they were said, well, it was subpoenaed. If they weren't subpoenaed, the texts predate any legal action. So that tells you all you need to know. It was a falling out amongst the PR firms. The PR firms decided they're going to do what they do best, which is get into a spat and plant stories at whoever is related to whoever. And mind you, everybody, this whole thing is 6 degrees of separation with all of the PR people involved. So at the end of the day, this is the dark underbelly of Hollywood and what happens on a daily basis, unfortunately.
Karen, do you see signs of that? This is your trade craft.
I am furious that this is how what I do for a living is being portrayed. True people who do crisis communications do not engage in this kind of garbage. Absolutely. Experienced public relations people that are in crisis communications get retained by attorneys. They don't get retained by the star. They don't spend their time paying influencers to put out trash. This is a huge black eye on this little niche field that people like me are involved in. And frankly, I don't think that's what this is about. And even in their document, they said, but if her husband gets involved, then we all have to stand down. So what are we really saying about the power of Hollywood and who we were willing to take on? And in the end, despite whatever Mark Geragos has to say, and I do respect him, they were paid to do this job. Justin Baldoni's firm knew exactly what they were getting, and they paid them to do this number on her. And in the end, they won the first round, but now with these text messages out, they've lost the war.
Oh, really?
I wouldn't be so sure.
Let me tell you, they can litigate it all they want, but the public opinion is now turned completely to her. And these text messages are so ugly and so ridiculous that he's lost it. And there are 500 other wannabe directors that are willing to take any director's place tomorrow.
Now, last quick thing. Elaine.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mark, make your point, and then I'll go to Elaine.
I'm just going to say, I know Brian very well, Friedman, who's involved in this, and he put out something today that I think speaks volumes when he talks about cherry-picked text messages. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say,
reading that?
And who do you think fed the first thing? That's what I'm telling you. This idea that somehow crisis management is above the fray is actually pretty hilarious. I mean, this is what so-called crisis management does.
Oh, no, it is not.
This is all they do. They cherry pick all this stuff.
Well, ethical. Two things can be true. Karen, your reputation is well-deserved for being somebody who plays straight. I know who you are. But not everybody has your reputation. Let me just end on this real quick. Elaine, is this something that Blake Lively has to litigate to make the point, a bona fide point that this needs to be litigated? Or does she settle and then it's really not about the truth, it's just about money?
Well, remember that what she asked in the complaint at the end is she seeks to set the record straight, to hold them accountable, and to shine a light on this new form of retaliation so that it will not be used against any others who seek to stand up and speak out against sexual harassment. If she settles it, what she would want to do is settle it in a way that has very public admissions by them, apologies, and we all now know that this is something this PR firm does, and others may as well. Let's hold them accountable. Let's make sure that they don't do this again. So whatever settlement she has to punish them. It has to send a message. It needs to send a message so people like Karen are the respected ones that you go to, and you stay away from these who just don't hesitate to engage in illegal fabrications and misconduct.
Elaine, Karen, thank you. Mark Geragos, as always disclosed, I like you so much, you're my lawyer. I wish you all and each the best for the holy days, and I thank you for coming on my show. All the best for the new year. We'll revisit this when more comes out, when we're all back. Thank you very much. Going to take a break, 4 minutes and 30 seconds, then we'll be back. So the assassin of the United Healthcare CEO pleads not guilty. Not unusual, but his lawyer says we will never get a fair trial. Very interesting. Is that true? He admitted he did it. A lot of people hate him for it. Some oddly do not. But can he get a fair trial? And why is the judge now being called into question. Did something come out that they should have let people know before they ever stood on this case? Next. Pleads the man who admitted assassinating the CEO of United Healthcare. His lawyer says the real issue is the system, starting with the perp walk. Take a listen.
I'm very concerned about my client's right to a fair trial. He was on display for everyone to see in the biggest staged perp walk I've ever seen in my career. It was absolutely unnecessary. He's been cooperative with law enforcement. He had been in custody for over a week. He waived extradition. He was cooperative at all accounts. There was no reason for the NYPD and everybody to have these big assault rifles that, frankly, I had no idea was in their arsenal. And to have all of the press there, the media there, it was like perfectly choreographed. And what was the New York City mayor doing at this press conference?
Is she right that this guy can't get a fair trial? Let's get perspective from someone who's been on both sides of this type of litigation. Prosecutor turned defense attorney Randy Zellin. It's good to see you, sir. Best for the holy days. Thank you for being on my show.
Such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
So give me the equities, pro and con, fair trial.
Sure. And I'm going to be counterintuitive here, because if I am the defense, I'm looking around at all the people who have sensationalized, glorified, bowed down to my client, look at him as some kind of a cult hero. I wouldn't be so quick to say that my client can't get a fair trial. If I'm Alvin Bragg, I'm more concerned how maligned I've been, how persecuted I've been, that it's the people that can't get the fair trial. But a fair trial, Chris, is not a perfect trial. It's simply, will the jury come in, look at only the evidence that's admitted and nothing else, no sympathy. They will respect the presumption of innocence. They will respect the burden of proof. And they will decide the case strictly on taking the admissible facts, applying it to the law, and coming up with a verdict. That's the definition of a fair trial.
Give me an example of why this isn't too much for a jury to handle.
How many times have we seen high-profile cases, whether it's Harvey Weinstein? How about the president-elect? Gee, you think he may have had a problem getting a fair trial in New York? It's always difficult when you have a high-profile defendant, but a good trial judge will do the best that he or she can to vet those prospective jurors, make sure that those jurors come into the courtroom with nothing but their common sense, everyday life experiences, have not prejudged the case, can put all the noise out there, and simply look at the evidence that's admitted and reach a verdict.
And maybe this won't be the judge if these allegations about him being married to somebody from the healthcare industry is true. He'll probably be bumped off anyway. But we'll see. We'll see what happens when this develops. Randy Zellin, thank you very much. Appreciate a quick take on this, to be continued when the process continues. All the best for the holy days. 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Long COVID matters, okay? We cover it here. Something just came out. It's got the shine of Yale University on it, okay? Big claim about the COVID vaccine, and all the people who are against the vaccine love it. But here's the problem. They got it wrong. How do I know? My doctor has plenty of concerns about the vaccine, but she believes in the science, and she says this is all wrong and dangerous. Why? Next. Headline: Yale researchers have found COVID spike protein in the blood of people never infected with COVID years after they got the mRNA jabs. Ooh, the vax is the problem. Great headline. Great for the social media hate parade. One problem: it's BS. How do I know? Double board certified physician and long COVID specialist at Terrain Health, Dr. Robin Rose. She's been doing this research with a consortium of clinicians for years. She's got concerns about the vaccine and the virus both having lingering effects. She's got bigger concerns about science getting masked for propaganda. Dr. Rose, thank you for joining us. What did they get wrong and how?
Well, first of all, the first problem I have is that they're weaponizing this information. And this is why politicizing COVID is so dangerous. The paper that they're referring to actually just got taken down from the preprint server. So that to me is a red flag as well. However, the researcher that did this, that published this paper, I think she has a lot of valid things to say and has really provided a lot of great science when it comes to understanding what the behavior of the spike protein is. And her work is piggybacking off of the work of Bruce Patterson's work, which he's also contributed a tremendous amount to long COVID research. So I don't want to, at all downplay any of the work that they've done. The issue is that when you're looking for spike protein, when they're looking for vaccine spike protein, they're saying that the absence of what's called the nucleocapsid, which is the N protein, okay? That's present in the virus, okay? So when you're looking at the virus, the virus can have all different types of proteins, okay? And one of the ways we can distinguish virus from vaccine antibodies is the N protein. If you had recent infection, that means that you can have the N protein present, okay? But you can also have antibodies to the spike protein, whether you had infection or you had a vaccine. However, the absence of the N protein doesn't mean or equate to the fact that that's only spike from the vaccine. There's a specific sequence or a specific fragment in the sequence of the spike protein that was introduced by the manufacturers. Okay, so this was, chemically modified. This is not from nature. And that is what provides the fingerprint for the spike, for the vaccine spike. And that's what differentiates it. And if you don't see that, then that does not mean that it's spike protein from the vaccine.
And that's why it got removed from the server, because this is grabby, because it makes it seem like it's not about having COVID, it's just the vaccine. And it's more complicated than that. You can have long COVID from the vaccine, and you can have long COVID symptoms from long COVID itself.
Correct. And there's other ways for the spike protein to be introduced, okay, not just from the vaccine or from the virus, because we know now, and we've discussed this on our Substack and on previous segments when I was on with you, that the virus is a bacteriophage, meaning the virus invades the bacteria of the gut. Once it integrates into the DNA of that bacteria, okay, it can produce virons, it can produce other parts of other proteins that are part of that virus, and it can also produce spike protein on its own. So you can see spike protein circulating in the body and inside other cells that without the other parts of the virus. And you can't misinterpret that as necessarily being vaccine spike. And listen, half of my practice are patients that have post-vaccine conditions, right? So I'm the first one to champion evidence like this and seeing this, but we have to be really careful that we have the right information and that we're looking at the evidence the right way.
That's why I choose you, Dr. Rose. Thank you very much for setting us straight. If you want more, we have a Substack under my name. Dr. Rose lays things out all along these lines. Dr. Rose, thank you. We'll be right back.